almost zero update about what I actually read throughout this year, with the exception of one vlog in January. So I thought it was about time to talk to you guys about my year so far. As you can understand, creatively speaking, it has not been the best. You know, I've been quite absent from, let's face it, I've been absent from this channel a lot. I have not been following YouTube myself neither. I mean, not the bookish side of things. Reading, like, it happens, don't get me wrong, I've definitely read quite a fair bit, but I haven't been like sucked into my books, or with the exception of a few here or there. I've really kind of been struggling with reading throughout this year. I've been focused a lot more on sort of like other goals, so I was like building up my physical endurance in order to potentially walk part of the Camino de Santiago in September maybe, and I'm definitely still gonna be doing that. I walked like 18 kilometers in Paris a few days ago, and that absolutely killed me. So it has to go up if I want to be able to do the Camino at some point. But you know, I've been doing that. I got back into gaming at the end of April. So there's just been other stuff that has been taking my focus over the past few months. And I haven't had that same sort of like hunger for reading, hunger for exploring stories. So I want to get back to that, and I do feel like I am slowly getting back to that. And part of that, getting back into that, getting back excited about all of this, is getting back to this channel as well. So let's just go over the months. I do have some B-roll that I will also be showing throughout this video. I don't really know how I'm going to integrate these two together, but I'll do my best at that. But so for the month of January, basically aside from the vlog that I did share with you guys in January, I only have this super cute clip of Fate while she's sleeping and I'm cuddling her. So like, enjoy that, but there really isn't much more that I talked about in January, because I was throughout the first 4 months occasionally trying to create content that just never made it to you guys. But so let's just look at what I read in the month of January. In the month of January I read 9 books. I am not going to go through all of them in super high detail, especially because, you know, like for some of them I might not even remember all that much. I brought some books with me because they are supposed to be some of the books that I read this year, but it's potentially the case that I have more of these physically than what I remember, but hey, there we are. First thing that I finished this year is The Wishlist by Sophia Monique-Kutz. This is a book that I listened to in the audio form. It is a romance book. I enjoyed this one, but it is kind of an annoying one where the love interest that she's with for the majority of the book is like the wrong one. But this is just like a light read that I listen to on the commute, so that, you know, if my mind wanders, because, you know, I'm estimating like traffic situations and whether I have priority or not, then that doesn't really matter all that much with a read like this, but I did enjoy it overall. Then there are 4 books that are mentioned in that vlog that I mentioned earlier, so I have more in-depth thoughts on them there if you want them, because I'll say that some of these I don't know anything about anymore, which is the case for the first 2, which is I'm Afraid of Men by Vivek Shraya and All the Horses of Iceland by Sarah Tolmie. I did have a good time, like a good time is saying much, with Happening by Annie Ernaux. This is a book about a woman who is committing abortion, so it's about the author, it's autobiographical, about the author undergoing an abortion at a time in which abortion wasn't even legal yet, so you had to go through some dodgy places in order to get this done. And then the other book that I read for that vlog is And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer, which I really enjoyed, but it's super short, so I can't really say too much about it, except it's about dementia. Then, the next book that I read in a month is The Starlight Heir by Emily Howard, of which I don't remember too much. I think it's like, it's a trope that I quite enjoy, where it's like a character who doesn't really know her whole backstory or her whole powers. And so it's a woman who is a blacksmith, I think, and she's basically just living in this like nondescript town away from the attention. But then she's called in to be part of this sort of like competition for the prince's attention and love. And that is basically not a good plan, because her father is kind of trying to keep her out, but you know, you cannot refuse an invitation like that, because secretly she has this power that apparently the kingdom is like seeking out. Then, this one I have physically in the pile next to me, and I see that we're getting off to a good start because the battery is dying, so I'll have to go and check for another battery. Alright, this battery also doesn't have a ton of power, so we are very well prepared. The camera angle may have shifted a little bit as well as how far I'm zoomed in, but let's hope that, you know, this is still more or less okay. I'm actually gonna twist it a little bit because I feel like it's not standing straight. Should put a water pass on there. So how am I gonna do this? Alright, the next book that I finished was for a book club, which is hosted by Bemuzed. This is the climate fiction reading book club, so we read books that have to do with climate fiction. They tend to be like non-fiction, then fiction, non-fiction, and then fiction. And in the months of January and February, this was The Book of Hope by Jane Goodall and Douglas Abrams with Gail Hudson. This was interesting, but I do feel like it is mainly told through interview format, and I would have just preferred to see that as an interview probably, compared to having it in a written down interview format. But aside from that, it was interesting. I did definitely tab a few things, but it was also like not groundbreaking. There wasn't that much in there that was all that new to me, but I've also at this point in time already forgotten a lot about what was potentially in there, so who knows, maybe there was a lot more in there that I just don't really fully remember about at this point in time. Next up, okay, this marks the start of my reread of King's Dark Tidings by Kel Kate. So this is a series which is near and dear to my heart, a little bit of a guilty pleasure. Like, it's not bad or anything like that, but it's also like it's not anything spectacular. I really enjoy these characters. I enjoy their interactions a whole lot. It's a very fast read for me and a comfort read for me. So in this series we're following a character called Reskin, who was taken from his home as a young child and raised to be the ultimate warrior. And so basically he has been trained very rigorously in the arts of survival and the art of assassination, but he's not been trained in like social interactions aside from playing a role. So he doesn't really have a grasp of who he is as a person, and when he graduates from this academy, basically all of his role models through circumstances end up dead, and so he's set loose into the world without any guidance, without any understanding of what his goal is and who he as a person is. And so he meets a few characters along the way that through circumstances become attached to him, and their interactions and the sort of like communication errors that occur because of him not really fully understanding social behavior are what really make the series. But that's also just like the start, because Reskin as a character grows a ton throughout the books. However, he as a person, because he's never really been taught to reflect on certain things, also just doesn't really see how much he's grown or how much he might have grown to care about certain people, because, you know, like it's like feelings that are foreign to him that he has no real grasp of or understanding of being able to recognize within himself. I accidentally clicked something wrong here, it seems like. But so, in January I read Free the Darkness, which is the first book within this series, and Reign of Madness, the second book in the series, and to date probably my favorite within this series. So, moving on to the month of February. In the month of February, not a whole ton of happens in terms of reading, but I do have a lot more B-roll here, which I guess I will insert here. So this will be a lot of B-roll of my holiday to Lanzarote, and then I do think that I started a vlog later on within this month as well, so if those clips make any sense to include, I will include them here at some point throughout this whole throughout this whole, I don't know. This battery has been charging for like half an hour, and I hope that gives me at least some time to talk about the next books. So, in the month of February I read 6 books, and like half of them I will already say without really going into them. Half of them are just like books 3, 4, 5, and 6, so actually more, like four of the books in that month are just the King's Dark Tidings series that I talked about earlier. I would love to claim that I'm doing my updates from different places sometimes, but I'm always sat here in the sofa. But so yeah, it is Wednesday evening. Did I intend to go swimming after work today? Yes. Did I? No, of course not. So I am, yeah, just being a couch potato at the moment, and I am about to hit Will Prescribe You a Cat and finish the book already. But so I am also, as I indicated in the previous clip, currently reading the fifth book in King's Dark Tidings. I really enjoyed the series a whole ton. I am very happy to be on my reread of book 5 because that means that I can quickly go, like, I can soon go into book 6, which is the new release that came out in December. I'm still debating whether I'm going to reread the sort of like companion novel first or whether I'm going to go straight into book 6, but probably I'm going to go straight into book 6. So that's what I've been listening to on the commute, sometimes while cooking, sometimes also just when I just like don't really feel like picking up a physical book. So I have about like 10 hours I think to go in that. So I'm not halfway through yet. It's probably not going to be finished this week, but so that is another book that I'm currently kind of like focusing on. I might go for like a long walk on Saturday, for example, so that might get me a little bit further into it. But even then, I don't expect to be gone for like so many hours that the book is gonna be gonna be finished all at once. But so yeah, that is basically the two books that I've mainly been focusing on right now. All the others have basically just been on pause since my holidays, and so some even before that. So I'm hoping to finish at least like Will Prescribe You a Cat tonight, so that tomorrow I have physical therapy and Spanish class, so tomorrow I won't really have time to focus on anything other than the fifth book in King's Dark Tidings. And on Friday I have somewhere to be. So really, we'll just have to wait until Saturday before I can actually make progress in anything else that I have going on. So probably this vlog isn't going to be as productive as thought, but maybe I could just like extend it until like the end of February or something like that. Probably I'll do something like that. But so I've also been quite motivated right now to kind of try and get as many as possible badges on my Garmin app. So while I was on holiday, I was there with like somebody who is much more sort of like into like the badge collection, or like she has a friend who's very much into the badge collection, and so we were kind of focusing on trying to get a few of those badges while we were over there. And so I've kind of gotten the buzz again for trying to get some of those badges completed. So that's what I'm working on right now. So I've done like a few easy badges where you just had to like connect to social media in order to be able to get the badge or set a goal or something like that. But I'm currently working on two sort of like major badges, which is like the 30-day step goal one, and then going into the 60-day step goal one. I have a very light step goal of just like 4,000 steps, but on a day like today, for example, it's like 9 o'clock and I have yet to reach the 4,000 steps. I'm close to it. I'm like at 3,730, but like it isn't a given. Like it's not something that I automatically achieve. Like on a Saturday, for example, when I'm just like sat inside the entire day sometimes, I don't even get to 2,000. So it is definitely something that I do need to keep in mind to ensure that I get this badge. And then I'm also working on the hydration one because it's been a goal of mine to up my hydration. I've been kind of going about it slowly, just trying to make sure like that I consistently hit certain levels of hydration, and then if I've managed to do so for a long enough time, kind of up the ante. But now that I'm like really motivated with this sort of like badge system, I was like, okay, maybe I should just go immediately for the hydration badge, which means that I have to drink like about 1,900 milliliters every day for 30 days straight or 60 days straight. I think 30 days straight. We are on day 3. I have yet to reach it, but I do definitely think that I will be able to. But so it is a question of, will I be able to stay motivated enough for this to continue doing that for like 30 days? And then hopefully, because this is a repeatable goal, to just continue from there on. So it would be great because, I've been trying to like get properly hydrated for years because hydration is definitely something that I struggle with. So it would be perfect. But will I be able to do this? We'll have to see. But so yeah, that was a tangent that had nothing to do with reading, but that's basically part of what my motivation goals are nowadays, is kind of like working on those badges, trying to improve my fitness. Um, also want to go back to swimming, for example. But in part, it is also because I'm kind of hoping to, in September potentially, or October, like do 1 week of hiking on the Camino de Santiago. And for that, you have to like walk like 25 kilometers a day and stuff like that. So I need to get my fitness up if I want to like be able to do that by that time. But so yeah, let me get back to reading right now. I don't know when I'll update you guys, but most likely it'll be from this sofa. The only new read within this one is Knights of Shadows, which is the sixth and most current book in the series. This came out in December, and I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it a little bit less because due to circumstances, our cast is kind of splintered off into different parts of the world, and there's less interaction between the characters. And as I was indicating before, that's like part of like what I really enjoy about this series, and so there's just like less of those things that I like, and so a lot of the book was just spent like me just like pining for them to get back to one another so that I could have more of their interactions. Then I was challenged to read this book by a colleague. Basically, I mentioned to this colleague that I don't like crime fiction, and that I also don't tend to like Irish fiction. Like, nothing against Irish fiction as a concept, but in practice, most of the Irish books that I've tried have not been to my liking. And so she challenged me by giving me a crime book by an Irish author, which is All Her Fault by Andrea Mara, which I gave a 4.25 star rating to because I did really enjoy this one. Like, it was also a perfect read to read on holiday because crime fiction is quite like light to some extent and, you know, a quick read. But this is about the abduction of a boy, basically. So a woman goes to pick up her son off from school, and when she arrives there, no, not even, like this mother is given like a text, I think, like she makes an arrangement with another mother from a child within the school that they're gonna have a play date at her place, but all these arrangements are made by text, and the address that she is given to pick up her son turns out to be a fake address. Like, it's an actual address, but it's not the address where this woman lives, and so this boy has basically gone missing because because this boy was basically taken out of school by the nanny. So what follows next is a search for both the nanny and the child, of course, and for answers of why is this happening. And so I really enjoyed this one. I think what really helped as well is the fact that we had something else to do than figure out the crime and try to like prevent further crime. We're trying to find this boy and get him back home. And there are also some twists in this one that I did really appreciate as well, that I thought were interesting. And then the final book that I read within the month is The Full Moon Coffee Shop by my Mochizuki. I enjoyed this one fine. Like, I gave it a 3-star rating. I think it definitely is like a pretty decent book in the sort of like healing Japanese fiction genre, but I've definitely grown quite tired of this genre, and I basically brought 2 of these with me on holiday. I only got through this one, and the other one I'm still trying to make my way through, but I've actually just decided to DNF it. So like, I think I need to stop these types of books from entering my reading life for a while at least, because they're just like not doing all that much for me anymore, because they just feel too formulaic at this point in time. They just feel too much like each other, because the whole point of these books is that they're typically quite plotless. They're very much vibes and about the messaging and about getting to know these characters and healing through literature. But I feel like because all of them are like that, which of course is just like a genre setup, I can get like quite tired of reading too many of them, and we've definitely reached that point at this point in time. So the same way that I cannot read a Dickens at this point in time, or a Murakami, because I've just read too many of them and they're all the same, I cannot read this genre for a while at least, because I just feel like they're all starting to blend into one and I'm just not getting anything new out of them, which is always something that I'm looking for in literature. There's always has to be a connection on the one hand, and what I definitely appreciate, like what puts something higher up, is the fact that it provides something new. And so I think The Full Moon Coffee Shop it's like a 3.3 star rating, because I had that connection and I really enjoyed going through the book, but it didn't do anything new for me, so it will just stay at a 3-star level, which I think is like the highest I can get with a book like this at this point in time, almost because of how many I've read. What did I tell you guys? I was going to come here again to update you guys, but so light is horrible at this moment, so if I move here, maybe, but then you see that total mess behind me. Maybe like this, yeah, much better. So this morning, we are Saturday morning, I have basically barely continued anything. Like I have read some in Kings Are Tiding because that is like my audiobook. And then that is most or likely it because Thursday I have Spanish class, so I just had like the Kings Are Tidings, and then yesterday we went to Phantom of the Opera after work. So I basically had no time to read after work, so the only reading I did was in the morning. So yeah, we are not really contributing a lot to this vlog so far. But so yesterday I went to Phantom of the Opera. I have been to Phantom of the Opera in London, and I've seen the 25th anniversary edition on the TV during COVID, and like I've rented it a few times since as well because I really love Phantom of the Opera, and so I really loved this production as well because the set design was just amazing. Just so like this sort of like rotating piece on the stage, and so basically there would be like one side towards the public, and in the back side there would be another set design, and then sometimes it would rotate, and in the meantime in the background people were like changing the set design so that the next time it turned around you would be presented with another scene. So it was a really nice way to get all these different types of sets into the stage. And so it was really lovely done. But I do feel like the sound could have been better because occasionally, especially during like the titular song, Phantom of the Opera, it was like the music was a little bit too loud to fully appreciate the vocal work. And there's very strong female vocal work happening within that song that I felt was a little bit drowned out by the music at that point in time. And there's also quite a lot of times, or like a few times in Phantom of the Opera, where there are like different people singing different reprises, basically, because Phantom of the Opera has a lot of reprises of common themes, and there's a lot of times in the production in which like two characters will be singing sort of like a reprise of this song over there, and then these characters are singing a reprise of another song at the same time, and the others are singing a third, and those three different texts you should normally be able to pick up on all three sort of like vocals and all three sort of like texts, not fully, like there are certain things that definitely get lost over it, but now it felt like you couldn't really follow any of them anymore because it was just too chaotic when all of the different texts were coming together. So I feel like the mixing of the voices was a little bit like, technically speaking, the technicians should have done a little bit of a better job there. But aside from that, I still really enjoyed it. And, you know, I went with my sister and my mother, so we went to Antwerp for it, and then we went there a little bit early to have like a few drinks together, and then to have some dinner before the musical started. And so, yeah, I had a great time, but that of course meant almost no reading yesterday. And so today we are going to be reading. Now I'm a little bit more mentally, at least, focused on the step challenge that I'm going to be doing with my friends. So I am waiting for my my headsets to fully charge. In the meantime, I'm going to do some of my hydration already, since I'm going for that hydration badge. And then I guess I also should get some food in, because I need some energy for my walk as well, right?
All of us, in our hearts, there's love and light that we must realize. We need to feel, we need to use this warmth that could make bright our lives. And all of us, in our hearts, there's love and light that we must realize. We need to feel, we need to use this warmth that could make bright our lives.
guess we can move on to the month of March. I think I've only got one clip for the month of March. I think it's me trying to start a new vlog that then totally didn't happen. Like, I even don't remember what type of vlog I was going to start there. Is that the one of like reading too many books at the same time or something like that? I don't even remember, but in any case, I only have a clip on like the 1st of March or something like that, and afterwards I didn't do anything with it. The next vlog clip is like the 31st of March for a vlog that will actually make it to your doorstep, so yeah. And I don't even think I have much b-roll of anything within the month of March, except maybe some walking b-roll, but I actually think that that was still in February, so you will have already seen that. But so, for the month of March I have a lot more here next to me, because a lot of the reading that I did throughout that month was like books from my physical TBR, because I was like, yeah, the physical TBR is starting to like get out of hand again. I need to definitely prioritize some of these books to keep it low, because you know, like, I don't have, it doesn't have to be at 0 all the time, but I would like for it to stay relatively low so that at all points in time I can feel like, okay, this is manageable if I just like put a little bit of effort into it. So at that point in time I felt like, okay, I need to put a little bit more effort into it at this point in time to keep it that manageable. So the first thing that I read is another one of these healing fictions, and this is what I'm talking about because I rated this one 1 star. Hello! So I realized today that I'm reading 7 books at the same time again, so I might as well make a vlog out of it, right? So this is number 1, We'll Prescribe You a Cat. It's looking a little bit wrinkly because it got a little bit wet. So I am like pretty near the end of this, but this one is actually taking me way longer than I would have expected it to, because I was expecting it to be like a book that I would read in like one day, which happened for another cat book that I read on holiday, but this one has been taking me forever. I'm really just like not going through it as quickly. It's just not vibing with me the same way that the other book was. In Will Prescribe You a Cat, we are basically going to be following a couple of people who seek out mental health advice for one reason or another, and they are steered towards this sort of like mysterious clinic. Those are my appetizers to this mysterious clinic that yeah, let's interrupt myself for a minute and go and grab those. Ta-da! Oven snacks. So basically they are going to this sort of like weird little mental health clinic where this doctor seems to like not be taking things all that seriously, and he basically prescribes everybody with a cat. So basically they take this cat home with them, sometimes for like a period of time, sometimes he prescribes like they immediately adopt them and stuff like that. But typically the cat visit does not go all that well at first, at least, because typically the cat kind of brings even more chaos in these people's life, and basically some of the early owners at least are not really all that happy with the cats and, you know, like the way that they're influencing their lives. But then it turns out that they are, of course, in love with these cats because, you know, cats are awesome. But yeah, this one hasn't really been working all that well for me, so I'm just basically like going through the motions at this point in time with the remaining 2 stories within this one. So I do want to finish the current story tonight so that I can finish the entire collection tomorrow. But so book 1 out of 7, here we go for today's progress in it. I have already made progress in another book that I'm currently reading, which is the audiobook for King's Dark Tiding book 5. But let's talk about that maybe tomorrow or something like that. Yeah, guys, it's a week later. My eye is looking all red because I feel so tired. I haven't checked in with you guys. It is March in the meantime. Did I do much more reading? I finished my reread of King's Dark Tidings 5, which I think I still discussed here. And in the meantime, I finished King's Dark Tidings 6. But aside from that, I still haven't read like the final 10 pages or so of this book. So this is absolutely what needs to be happening now. But so I've been mainly like really focusing on trying to get my Garmin badge for like walking 15 hours in February, which I just managed yesterday. So, and then I've been watching a lot of movies, because I think like last weekend or something like that is more or less when I realized like, oh wait, the Oscars are really almost here. So I have like watched like 10 or 11 movies I think now that are nominated for Oscars, and with those I've covered about half of the nominations, a little over half of the number of nominations. So like 60 something, 67 or so out of the 112 nominations I have watched with those 10 or 11 movies. I do kind of still want to go to one more movie this afternoon. Tomorrow I won't, or maybe I'll watch one at home in the morning or something like that, because tomorrow I'll go to bed early in order to wake up at 1 o'clock at night for the Oscars. But so basically that's been my week. It's been a lot of walking and a lot of listening to King's Dark Tidings, and watching movies whenever possible. And we are here a week later, and I still really need to get this TBR down, and I especially need to get this TBR down because I got an unexpected package. So somebody sent me a book. I already know who, so it's Ewald, because he contacted me online to ask me whether I had received it. He probably got some notification about it, like some difficulty with delivering it, I think, because during the day I got like a message that like the Amazon delivery guy needed my help, and I was like, wait, what? I didn't order anything, did I? And so I was already a little bit confused. But so that means an extra book is in this, is in my possession now, and the little tabby thing to easily open the envelope just got destroyed. But let's see what's in here, because I actually don't know what's in my wish list at all. Ooh! This is The Tropic of Serpents. So it's the second book in a memoir of Lady Trent, which absolutely is a series that I also need to continue in. So this is definitely not going to be a book that I'm immediately going to be picking up, because I do feel like I need to reread the first one in order to go into this second one. So I have a few on my TBR now. So this will be number 16 on the TBR. And I have a few on the TBR now that are like sequels. I have 2 on the TBR that are sequels. I have 3 on the TBR that are sequels, for which I feel like I would need to reread the others. Now, one of them is like Saga Volume 11. I don't necessarily think I will reread Saga Volumes 1 to 10 in order to jump into Volume 11. I feel like I'll pick up what it is, like where we are at, pretty quickly in that one. But like the other ones, so Lady Trent and then Those Above, I think, by Daniel Polanski, those I would need to reread in order to go into these ones. But so my focus for this weekend, and it's already 2 o'clock, and as I said, this weekend is going to be very short for me, so I'll do the best that I can, but it is to get that number down. And so I need to read those 10 pages of this book to go back to 15 books on the TBR. And then I do have a manga, which had Atelier Volume 1, so that would be another good contender to just get throughout this weekend, to go back to 14. And then I do have a book that's called The Rainfall Market, which is another one of these, I think in that case, a Korean translated cozy book. And I hope that one goes quicker than this one, because this one is absolutely supposed to be a quick read, and it definitely isn't. I'm definitely not enjoying it. I should have just put it down. But we are like 10 pages away from the end now, so I won't do that. But yeah, I definitely need to get this TBR back down, because the whole idea was that I was doing the whole sort of like every book all at once in order to go into 2025 with a clean slate, and we don't have a clean slate right now. I'm starting to feel again like I have too many books here, so we need to eliminate some of them. I'm also reading too much stuff at the same time. A couple of them are from the library, and I think I'm just going to DNF them. I'll get them from the library another time, maybe, if I want to. But there were 2 Spanish books, The Aleph by Jorge Luis Borges and Paradise by Fernanda Melchor, and the Spanish is just a little bit too difficult for me, and so I'm just going to like give up on those 2 right now and just like select another easier Spanish book for me to pick up, because I need to read a Spanish book for my Spanish course. So, but yeah, I think it's mostly that combination that's stressing me out, of having like a lot of books ongoing that I'm not really in yet, and then like having books that I need to tackle because of like commitments of wanting to tackle them, and that I'm just not getting to, because I'm like, oh yeah, but I'm reading 7 books at the same time. I cannot start a new one now. So I just need to get that number down, get the number of books down a little bit with some easy wins, and then I'll feel in a better place, hopefully. But yeah, it didn't work for me. I love cats. I love the chaos of cats, and these characters also always end up like starting to love the cat by the end. But I don't know. There's just something about the tone of it that just didn't work for me, and you know, it's just. As I said, I'm tired of this genre, and so it felt like a struggle to continue reading on with it, and I probably should have put it down the way that I'm finally gonna put down Rainfall Markets. Oops, falling to the floor there. Then I read the first volume of a manga series, which had to tell you Volume 1. Cannot really tell you too much about this one. This is like a girl in who doesn't realize that she has magic, and then it turns out that she doesn't, so she goes into training with a wizard, but that is like the full plot of the first volume, so this is very much like the setting up volume, and then like we'll see what happens from there on. I did think it was nice. I did enjoy like the art style to it, but I just have to continue on to see whether this is something I want to continue or not. Next up, a non-fiction. So I said earlier that for climate fiction, the Climate Fiction Book Club hosted by Barbora from Bookworm. What? Bookworm Wanderer. I cannot not come up with the title of her channel right now. It'll be on the screen if I butchered it just now. But so this is actually an extra book. So there are 3 extra books I think planned for this year, and I should actually check when the next one is because I also had an interest in that one. And that is The Great Arrangements, Climate Change and the Unthinkable, or maybe this was the standard one and The Book of Hope was the extra one. Actually, I think it's like that this was the standard one. So this is a climate fiction book by Amitav Ghosh, and I got a lot out of this, but I don't really remember anything out of it, unfortunately. But this was really difficult writing, I will admit. Like, it was really difficult to get into, but I've underlined so much of this, and I thought that it did really like while going through it, once you got into the flow of things, once I got to understand what was like his way of saying things, his writing style, I did really appreciate both that style and what he was saying. But unfortunately, I forgot a lot about that. I do think that it was a lot as well about like the landscape of like the wealthy countries and the developing world, and a lot about racism and all of those things as well, which I really appreciate about this, because that is something that a lot of times, of course, is not part of the sort of like stereotypical or most accessible climate fiction writing that we see every single day. And so this is an important part of the conversation that I appreciate being drawn to our attention through this book. So yeah, I do definitely want to maybe reread that at some point, but he also has another book which is called The Nutmeg Curse, which I believe is also a non-fiction about the topic that I might want to check out as well. Next up, we have Death of the Author by Nelia Korafor. This is a really good book. I really enjoyed this a whole ton. It's part sci-fi and part just like fiction, because this is a book about an author. It's a disabled black woman. I don't actually remember her nationality, whether this is set in the UK. It doesn't immediately say at the back neither, but so a disabled black author who is teaching a creative writing course. She is a little bit too direct in her criticism of one of her students, and the students like bursts into tears and complains with the administration, and so she is fired. And at that point in time, kind of like inspiration strikes, and she writes this novel that turns into this huge bestseller, of which like the movie rights are sold and all those types of things. And it's a lot about Death of the Author, the idea that the author's intent, that the work of an author stands apart from the author's intent, and that it can kind of start to live its own life based on people's reinterpretations of it. And so the author very much is conflicted by how people reinterpret her work, what they see in it, but it is also a lot about disability, of course, and as well about her, about racism, about her identity as a black woman. And throughout this novel, what we also get is the actual historical novel that she is writing at the same time. So we get an intermixing of both her storyline as the author and the actual story that is the story that she wrote, and both of which are really, really good. I really enjoyed this book a whole ton. I actually want to reread it at some point, because now I feel like I feel like this is the type of book that deserves a reread, because you're exploring so much through a first read that it just becomes more interesting to then revisit it again at a later time as well. Next, I was listening to The Baby Dragon Cafe by A.T. Qureshi. This is a cozy romance set in a fantasy world where dragons are real, and so this woman has a baby dragon cafe. She's kind of struggling a little bit with it, and seeing like what direction to take with it, and in the costs that are associated with destructive little pets running around in your shop. And then a man meets her on the street. He falls like instantly in love with her, and then he hires her to train his baby dragon. And I did kind of find that an annoying setup, this whole sort of idea that the only reason why he's hiring her is because he has a crush on her. That just like, I didn't like that as a setup, but it was okay. Like, this is definitely not like a book that I had the best time in. If I were to recommend any type of romance read, this would be like low on the list of priorities. Probably one that I would never recommend. I'd recommend 1,000 others above it, but it was okay. You know, like, I mean, it wasn't difficult to get through. And then I listened to a non-fiction, Your Genius Gut by Emily Leeming. This is about your gut microbiome, which is a topic that interests me. And I mean, like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but you know, what else I'm going to say about that? Listen to that, and I do definitely think I want to re-look at like the final section, which gives like 10 tips physically to see if I can implement them a little bit more in my life. Yes, hello. Alright, final two things for the month of March. The Fool's Errand by Robin Hobb, first book in the Tawnyman trilogy. I am struggling a little bit with being back with Fitz compared to the previous trilogy within this overarching universe, which was a Lifeship Traders trilogy. I love that part of the world. I love those customs, the history of those families. I love those characters, and I will say that Fitz has always been a little bit of a struggle for me personally to connect to. Like, it's not that I cannot connect to him, but like, Fitz is a little bit more of a whiny character to read in my perspective. And well, that's not to say anything, because I did give, I think, at least 2 out of those 3 books 5-star ratings, so like, I still enjoy them, but it's just that I was a little bit like sad to not be revisiting the characters from the Lifeship Traders series. So I struggled a little bit, especially in the beginning, in getting back into Fool's Errands, and I gotta admit that at this point in time I'm also a little bit like, wait, what happened in this book again? Like, my memory is like already fully erased. Like, not fully, I know, definitely I know. Ah, yeah, right. Now I remember what the plot of this book is. So we're revisiting Fitz way later within his life. He is constantly complaining about being an old man with pains at this point in time, which makes me wonder, like, what's gonna happen in the next Fitz trilogy, because he'll be even older then, I guess. And he's basically, like, due to the events of the first trilogy, he's now living far away from the society he was living in before. Most people are no longer in his life, but he's kind of drawn back into the center of events due to circumstances, and that's what I'm gonna leave it off with. There's a lot more exploration of the wit, which is like, right? No, the skill? Wait. The wit, right? A lot more exploration of the wit, which is a power, like basically this world we're looking at 2 sort of powers, the wit and the skill. And so the wit is basically this power that is very much frowned upon or looked down upon, and we're exploring a lot more of this and of the people, the old ones I think they're called, I want to say, but like I've just read another book where people are referred to as the old ones, so maybe I'm just confused now. But yes, I enjoyed it. I want to continue, but I just had to return the book to the library, and I already have too much on the May TBR, and in June I'll be away for a holiday, so it might not be until July. And then the next sort of like light romance audiobook that I listened to is the Cornish Cream Tea Bus by Cressida McLaughlin, and this one worked better for me. This is a story of a woman who basically has inherited a bus from her uncle. He used to do like tours on them, and she like loved working with him on that, and now she has inherited the bus and she's going to turn it into a tea bus, and so she's temporarily moving down to Cornwall to be with her best friend who will help her kind of set up this business. But she encounters some resistance from like the local population there, because this is like a small town in Cornwall that's very isolated and very much just like looking to their own, as well as some competition or some resistance from a local luxury hotel owner who looks at her crumpy bus and is like, no way that is going to be standing anywhere near where my customers can see it. But opposites attract, and so a sort of attraction romance ensues between the two of them. I did really enjoy this one actually, and I wouldn't mind reading more by Cressida McLaughlin. However, I feel like with romance I'm constantly just like switching to different authors, because something that I don't like about romance is these sort of like semi series where there are light connections between different books, but you're not actually following the same characters. So I don't want these characters to have like a vague reference in another book in which we're following other characters, because then I'm typically inclined to feel like, but I just want to see more of those other characters. And then we get to April, final month within this catch up. I don't think I have a ton of footage to show you here, because most of the clips that I filmed here are for the Grace of Kings vlog, which is gonna come your way at some point. And I just have footage of me attending the Sugar Babes concert, and I probably won't even share that because it's just basically my voice singing along to those songs, and that's just cringe for me. So, first thing I finished within this month is my first 5-star book of the year, and that is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. This is a book I have to admit that I had almost zero interest in. Like, I don't think I've ever really heard a ton of people explain it. I mean, probably, but it never sounded like anything all that interesting to me. It didn't pop out amongst all the 20,000 fantasy books that, you know, like, I hear the premise for over a year's time, and a ton of people were reading it, and I am the opposite, you know, like when some people are attracted to hype, I am put off by hype. I don't want to read a book that everybody's reading, and so when a book gets hyped, either it's a book that I was interested in before and then I will like get around to it and I'll feel like very annoyed at myself for not having read it before the hype, or it'll be a book that I didn't really know about or had no interest in before and I'll be like, yeah, whatever. And this is kind of what happened with this book, and it was recommended to me I attended this live show also by Bad Bora, to kind of schedule, like to plan out our magical readathon TBRs, and I don't actually remember the prompt that I needed this for at this point in time, but basically a lot of people were steering me in the direction. I think it's a book with witches, and a lot of people were steering me in the direction of this book. Do I have other book with witches? Yes. But then I was like, okay, sure, I'll give this one a go. And I'm so happy I did, because I love this one. So we are following 4 witches. They used to be childhood friends, thick as thieves, like a real girl group gang from their high school days. And now they're all grown witches in their 30s, which is my age, more or less. I mean, more. I am more, I want to say by that. So I enjoyed reading the perspective of these women who are like in a period of their life which is closer to my period of life than a lot of stories that I read. I feel like I read a lot more like younger protagonists or older protagonists, but not a ton within this age of life, and a lot of the people that I read within my age are like the typical like early motherhood type of storylines, which is not the path in life that I've chosen. But because we're following multiple characters here, we also have different types of story, like of life paths that we're following. But so basically, these 4 women are all witches, and in this world witches are more powerful than wizards. However, what ends up happening at the beginning of the book is that one of these women is like the top of the hierarchy of witches, and she has had something brought to her attention. There's a child brought to her attention who could be fulfilling an ancient prophecy that foresees the end of witchhood. And so she is very much, of course, worried about all of this, and she calls in the help of one of her friends to kind of gauge whether this child is an actual hazard and whether this could indeed be the child from the prophecy. Now, I'm not going to say too much more about that. So I love this book. I was completely engrossed in it. I was sucked in. This had a lot of tropes that I enjoy. One of the tropes that I can kind of talk about that I enjoy is like prophecy, because depending on the book it can be fulfilled in certain ways. What I prefer is sort of like prophecy that is where just knowing a prophecy is dangerous, because the act of knowing it kind of impacts your decision making and your choices, and the best prophecies are sort of the self-fulfilling prophecies that, because of people having known of the prophecy, they set actions in motions that then fulfill the prophecy, and there is some uncertainty about whether the prophecy would have even been fulfilled if you hadn't heard the prophecy to begin with. I think that with this one it's unclear at the end whether this was actually the child from the prophecy, which is actually what I enjoy the most. But I don't think the prophecy is a trigger, so I don't think like it's a huge spoiler to say that at the end of this I was like, is this now the fulfillment of the prophecy or not? But I think that this has a lot of interesting topics. It also tackles like differences of representation for racism, for example. It looks at different queer identities, and it also looks at the transgender issue, for example. And I think my one qualm with this book, which I don't necessarily know whether it's just a qualm or just a reality, is how it kind of goes black and white at some points. At some point, one of these characters in this book becomes like an absolute villain. It's a character who's kind of set in her ways and who does not really like to show or like to deviate from the plan or the course that she has set out for herself, which is always like characters that kind of aggravate me. But at some point it also starts to feel like, you know, there's no going back for this character anymore. The character has committed to a certain path and then just goes into like Bond villain mode, basically, you know, where there is no gray area anymore. It's black and white. This character is now a baddie and there's no going back and no forgiving anymore and things like that. And I prefer for my villains to be gray, and the villain was definitely gray at some point in time, or there was a potential for the villain to be gray at some point in time. And so that is the one thing that I'm just like, why did this have to be so black and white? Couldn't it have been more subtle, more grey, more sort of like conflicting for us as a reader? But maybe on this issue, or maybe because of my personal feelings on this issue, with this particular thing there was no possibility for that. I don't know, because I haven't read a subtle grey portrayal of this perspective on the issue, and so this is me just being a little bit vague, I guess, because I don't really want to say too much neither about that. But yeah, 5 stars, I absolutely loved it. That is my main qualm with it, but you know, the fact that I was so sucked in, I really enjoyed it, and like 99.9% of this book I was really all there for it and for the choices it was making. So like, yeah, let's go. I want to read the next one. And actually, for those of you who've read it, should I read the prequel now first, or should I continue into the second book? I mean, I will look that up myself as well, but, you know, in case someone of you wants to offer me the answer, that's also fine. Then I read a book that I borrowed from my mother. I gave it to her originally at some point, and that is Childhood by Tove Ditlevsen. This is a Danish book. It is the first in a trilogy. It's autobiographical about her life. It's in the... what time is this in? Doesn't really say, but it's definitely like been a while. She is from 1917 until 1976. And yeah, I enjoyed it, but it's difficult to talk about because, you know, like it's really just about her childhood, about things that are happening with her, about the dynamics between her and her brother and her mother and her father. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this look at a time period, at a society, and yeah, it's short, so I cannot really say too much about it. But I definitely think I will continue on. It's not like it's groundbreaking, as you can tell, because I don't really have much to say about it, but it definitely was sort of like, I don't know, therapeutic to some extent, or like... what do you call that, meditative to listen to while cooking. I definitely enjoyed that experience of consuming the story like that. Next up we have a reread and a first read right next to each other. So I reread A Natural History of Dragons by Mary Brennan. This is the first book in a series called A Memoir by Lady Trent. This is the story of a woman in a fantasy environment, sort of like Victoria era, think of that, who has the desire to study dragons in a time in which, first of all, there's not a ton of dragon studies. It's still at its very first early stages, but woman's role in society is very much just like sitting at home, you know, like, and especially in the wealthy part of society where she's from, sitting at home hosting parties and just like, you know, like not getting involved with politics or science or anything like that. And she's very much not complying with that. I've mainly enjoyed the first part, which is about her childhood and about how she gets interested in dragons and her early attempts at studying dragons clandestinely. But I do enjoy this in general, so these stories are very much sort of like travel adventure stories where we will be traveling to new places and, you know, like getting to find out more things about dragons, while at the same time also kind of studying local customs and things like that, local societies, and her own prejudice that she recognizes being a wealthy white woman compared to, you know, like people around her who might come from a different economic background or a different race. Final clip, hopefully, for this video, because I was interrupted by the camera overheating. But so she does acknowledge sometimes that, you know, even though she has many obstacles put in her way, being a woman in a field that is definitely not ready for a woman to be in it, she does still come from a position of privilege compared to other people that she meets across her journeys. And so then, yeah, that was a reread for me. And then I also went into the sequel, The Tropic of Serpents, which I don't really have too much to say about in comparison to the first one. This one does have like a sequence about motherhood and the restrictions that further places upon her, and the differences of opinion about you know, like the role of a mother compared to the role of a father, and the combination that a father can do with other things that a mother almost cannot do, or she will be seen as a bad mother. So I really enjoyed that sequence as well. And then I will go into the final book first before I talk about the penultimate one. So the final one that I read still in April is The Skin by J.E. Hannaford. This is a book about a Selkie, which is a mythological being, which is like a seal that can shapeshift into a humanoid person. And so our protagonist is a Selkie who is just like enjoying life with a friend of hers, and then their skin gets stolen, and so she is trapped by this person and is trying to escape him and find her skin again so that she can return home. And this, like, her story coincides with then a story of a crew aboard a ship called the Black Hind that is sort of like captained, like not really captained, but they are working for this guy called Sel, who basically seems to be on a mission to find creatures like her, so old ones who are like sirens, selkies, any type of sea witches I think we also have, so any type of mythological being, in order for them to be returned to their natural environments, because a lot of them are like being kept in these sort of like aquariums, a lot of times unaware of the fact that they are actually mythological creatures, thinking that they're just like a specific water type creature. And yeah, I'm not going to go into it too much about this one. What I mainly enjoyed about this one is the world, because this is just like a type of a lot of mythological beings that, you know, we don't really tend to read about a ton. There's also sort of like a reveal halfway through, a little bit of a game with time as well, that I did think was done nicely. But all in all, I think the main thing that drew me into this one is the world. I don't think that the story so far has really been like something exceptional or anything like that, but I do definitely want to read the sequel to it, especially because the sequel has got a big fat dragon on the cover, so I'm eager to see how that plays in, because this world so far has very much been sort of like ice water world, and so it's like I don't tend to associate dragons with that, so it'll be interesting to see, like, is this just like a different type of setting, or, you know, like, are we getting some sort of like Nordic type of dragon and things like that. And then the final one I'm going to talk about is one for which I will have a full vlog out, which is The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. But the vlog is going to be spoiler filled, so you can have some of my non-spoilery thoughts about this one in here. So this is a epic fantasy series which has 4 books in it, and like this one is already pretty big, but the next ones are massive. I think the longest one that I've seen is like close to 1,000 pages long, and this is a sort of like retelling of a page in Chinese history. This is a very big plot. We're looking at a kingdom that has, like, it used to be many different kingdoms, and they're all kind of gathered together in this one empire called the Xana Empire, I believe. And so we are basically seeing players from different of these separate kingdoms kind of trying to overthrow this empire, as the emperor holds a lot of control, a lot of power, and is kind of abusing that power. It's in favor of the Xana people, but like not a little bit to the detriment of the people of the different kingdoms that have been annexed by this empire. And so we're following a few players. Mainly the ones that we're following is Kuni Mata and no. I'm always confused with these. One is Mata and the other one is Hari. It's Kuni Hari and Mata Zuri, right? And so we are looking at mainly these 2 characters as their dynamics kind of shift throughout the book, as they are kind of working together at some points, falling out at others, and in this first one, I gotta say, like, a ton happens, but we're so zoomed out of the effects that occasionally this wasn't really working for me. But I think what really works with this one is to consume it in big chunks at a time, like read 100 pages of this at a time in order for you to get the best experience out of it. Because I think if you're just like reading a chapter here or a chapter there, then like I in any case got kind of lost with like the characters and like, okay, wow, is this an important character or not? Whereas if you read like 100 pages at a time, you get a little bit more of that sort of overarching view, which is what the first book kind of feels like. It feels like an overarching view, a setting of the board, and then we'll see where the story takes us from there. I have heard that the sequels from here on out will be going much more into we'll zoom in much more on the characters and on their inner journey, and I am looking forward to that because that is what I love more. I think I did like the characters here as well, but I think we had there was just too much happening. We had to cover too much to be able to fully get the best experience out of these characters, and so I'm hoping to get that with the sequels, but I'm definitely intrigued already, and I'm eager to see where we're going from here, especially since we'll be zooming in a lot more on these characters and I get to grow much closer to these characters now. But so yeah, that is all of my reading for the first 4 months of the year. I'm definitely not intending to have this be the way we go about things from now on. I don't expect my next wrap-up to be a wrap-up of the next 4 months of the year, but who knows. But so yeah, I'm happy for all of you who kept on chatting with me in the Discord, who kept up with me, and I love this community, and I'm very eager to get back to this and get to experience this side of BookTube again, because yeah, I have definitely missed it, and so hopefully I can stick to it. I don't make any promises, but here's hoping. So, thank you guys for watching, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and see you guys for the next one. Bye!